Hello and welcome to episode 437 of Geektown Radio. I'm your host, Dave, and with me this week is Matt. How are you doing?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks. So it's been a few weeks since you've been on. What have you been up to?
Well, I just finished the first season of Yellowjackets yesterday, which I mentioned last time I was on. Absolutely brilliant. Finished the 10-episode season 1. There's 9 episodes in the second season. Very much does scratch that lost itch that I mentioned before, and sort of the lesser itch, but still there, I guess, of Servant, which was the Apple TV Plus horror thriller series, depending on who you ask. Yeah, still continued what it was doing before. You've got the sort of past storyline, if you want to call it that, which is these girls from this football team. The football team is called the Yellowjackets, and they go off to a championship thing, and then the plane crashes, and then they have to obviously survive. You've got kind of a middle storyline, which is just this weird bit. There's not really a way to sort of like describe or explain it. And then you've got the future one, which is when some of them are in their 40s, 50s, you know, so I think it was 25 years later, showing their lives and that kind of stuff. Now, they haven't showed as many future characters as what are on the island. That doesn't mean that everybody else, though, is dead. They just haven't shown some of the other characters yet. The middle, interestingly, as you go through the season, particularly past like the early stages of the first season, they stop showing the middle bit as much, and I completely understand why, because that's the most kind of mysterious, kind of like what the hell's going on here sort of part. In fact, they almost completely stop going towards it, but they still make sort of hints towards it as well. My only kind of very small gripe with the show, they do spend a fair bit of time with the future storyline, and while that storyline's good, it kind of just makes me hungry to get back to them on the island and like, okay, how did they survive? What happened? Because that's where more of the sort of mystery lies and stuff. You get an interesting sense going through that, like when some of the adult characters are mentioning or like hinting to or mentioning things that happened on the island, which they always talk about in a dark way. And then you go back to the island storyline and you see some of those seeds start developing. It's put together quite well in that sense. But yeah, I should have started. I had a chance yesterday. I should have started season 2 because I was very eager to get to that. But yeah, weird, kind of interesting cliffhanger for the first season. And yeah, it's really quite brilliant so far. You've got some shows listed that I've also been watching, so we'll get to that in a minute. Yeah, I wondered what you thought of The Last of Us season 2 trailer. We had the proper trailer. We had Last of Us Day. Was that 2 weeks ago already? Gosh.
Yes.
Yeah. I wondered what you thought of the trailer.
I mean, looks great. I'm really looking forward to that coming back. And it's difficult because whereas with the first one, I could sort of go, oh, you know, I remember that from the game. You know, I remember that sequence. I've not played the second game, so I have no idea how any of this relates to anything. So I'm really intrigued to see for the TV show.
I'll say it's very, very well, like very craftily sort of put together and stuff, because there's like a different structure to this story. And as Craig and Neil have said, they want to split this into at least 2, if not 3 seasons. And yeah, it was interesting because some of the scenes they chose to show are, well, obviously trailers aren't chronologically kind of accurate anyway, because they're designed to throw you off, designed to be edited in a weird way. It's like when we had, what one was it? What Marvel film was it? I think it was Infinity War, when we had Hulk in that trailer.
Yeah.
And, you know, things like that. They're not quite doing that here. Although Hulkbuster was there, it just wasn't Hulk. So, yeah. So they're kind of doing that. And then fans have kind of debated, like, okay, if that's here, does this mean this? Because there seems to be a bit of consensus that, oh, they might switch certain bits around because the story's structured a bit differently. So I don't know what Craig and Neil have done. We'll have to wait and watch to find out. But unless they found a way that I can't think of, which is kind of part of their job, I don't see a reason or a way that you switch too much around. And although you did see, I can't say which parts, but like there's quite a few flashback sequences as well in part 2, because again, you do have the time jump and stuff. Because obviously Ellie's older in this as well. And it's sort of, okay, visiting those, and okay, you can kind of somewhat put those in, you can put those in a bit of a different place, and you can mess about with the timeline a little bit. But then there's also, because I think Neil said, I think it was the day before the trailer came out, and he said there's like 3 or 4 different characters that maybe for gameplay reasons or whatever they didn't quite delve into and they want to explore. A bit like how we had the Bill and Frank focused episode.
Yeah. I mean, that worked out really well for them for season 1.
Yeah, so. Definitely. So you got that going on. And there's a few characters already I can think of that were brilliant and all that, but you could expand upon. And I think the initial thought was, okay, if there's like two halves to the game, because it's double the length and you do 2 seasons, but then if you slot a third one in, you can do sort of extra or bonus episodes for those characters. So we'll have to see kind of how that goes. But yeah, overall, HBO quality trailer, like you said. So
yes,
see how that goes. All right, what have you been up to, David?
On the gaming front, still playing Satisfactory. I have actually got nuclear power set up, finally. So that is up and running and managed to get that all running and stabilized. I'm sort of on the last tier of the stuff that you're supposed to build right now. So I am getting towards the end of the main game. I mean, you can go on and build, for as long as you want in this universe, essentially, but I am getting to the end of the sort of main bit of the story. So that's been great. And I mean, I'm up to sort of 800 hours or something in total on that. To be fair, I have left it running overnight to sort of build up supplies of things sometimes as well. So there is that. But just fantastic, that game. Really, really enjoying it. TV-wise, Penguin, I've been enjoying. We're a few episodes into that now. Agatha's a few episodes through, been enjoying that. Ludwig, which is the new BBC David Mitchell comedy drama, I've been really enjoying that. It's a much more sort of gentle kind of thing to the big American shows about this guy who is a twin, and one is a puzzle setter for magazines and the other one is a cop. The cop goes missing and the puzzle setter twin sort of gets forced into taking his place as a cop to find out what happened to him by the cop's wife. And he ends up sort of in the police station but solving cases because he treats them like puzzles. It's really good and really fun and very, very enjoyable. And I'm about 4 episodes into that because it's all up on iPlayer, that one. That's Ludwig. That's good fun. In terms of new stuff, though, this week, CSI Vegas came back for its 3rd and final season. Solid start to picking up where they ended things last season, with one of the CSIs getting arrested for murder, and the opening episode sort of resolves quite a lot of that. But, they've been doing a great job with that series. It's just a shame that they've not renewed it for more. And the Ark returned for its 2nd season as well, which I am really enjoying. I mean, as we were talking a little bit about last week, it's a very, very enjoyable sci-fi show. It's a bit cheap, but it's a fun, solid sci-fi series set on this space ark that is falling to bits. And in the opening sort of bits, once they've resolved some of the problems from the end of season 1, they're now trying to sort of go and nick some bits off an old abandoned ark to sort of repair their damaged ark. And that's sort of where I am at the moment. But I like it. It's properly solid sci-fi. Doesn't seem to be a huge budget on it, but I think it's nicely put together and it's fun. It's a fun little series, that. And the other thing that returned is Walking Dead Daryl Dixon for its 2nd season, which is called The Book of Carol. And there is a lot of Carol in that opening episode, which is no bad thing. I mean, Melissa's great. I'm very happy about it. But it was, you can see why they called it The Book of Carol, because there is very much giving her an awful lot of airtime in that opening episode, as we sort of, she, as we saw at the end of the 1st season, was out looking for Daryl. She gets this lead and then it sort of becomes about, well, she's in America, he's in France. How does she get from America to France? And the opening episode is sort of following a certain amount of that. You said you'd seen some of these shows. I'm assuming you've seen Walking Dead, but I mean, was there any of the others as well?
Oh, yeah, we caught up on with the podcast with those. I haven't seen the second season yet. So, with the first season when he kind of just shows up capsized in Spain,
yes,
is there more of an explanation as to why she shows up in France? I mean,
she discovers that he is in France,
right? Yeah,
through the which we kind of saw because she found his bike. So she discovers that he is in France, and she's basically just trying to go after him, and she discovers a way of getting there without giving anything away for the opening episode. But yeah, I mean, it's very much playing on Carol being Carol. There's a lot of that sort of going on of pretending to be the sort of sweet, innocent older lady. There is a certain amount of that rather than the kick-ass person.
That still reminds me when they got to, I can't remember which location it was. I remember in one of the seasons, it just reminded me of a scene actually. I think it was in season 5, and it was after they were at the cannibal's place, the location they ended up then. For some reason, I can't remember what it was called. Alexandra, yeah. I think it was when they first got there. And I remember when they first got there and it was like, oh, you need to all hand off your weapons. And like the way she handed off her assault rifle was as if like she hardly ever used it. And it was this like innocent sort of scene. So it just reminded me of that. But no, I've not actually started it just yet. I knew the air date and stuff and all that, and I knew which day it was coming out, and then I clicked on Sky at one point and it was just there, and I was like, oh right, okay, yes, it's out. So I'm obviously looking forward to that. We'll probably do something for that in 6 weeks or so when that finishes. Just wanted to comment on Agatha for a minute as well, because I've watched the 4 episodes of that. Quite enjoyed it. It's a different, fun, obviously very witchy kind of thing. Got some great actresses in there as well. Great to see Audrey Plaza, obviously the lead actress and stuff. Was it Catherine Hahn? That's her name?
Yes.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I was thinking of... What else was I thinking of? Catherine O'Hara? No, it's Catherine Hahn. So good to see her in there and everything. I think I said this to you maybe before. One of the interesting things with the MCU, time-wise at the moment, I'm not sure how many people have kind of noticed this as well. Because there's so many different like sections and things going on in the MCU, we do generally wait like 3 to 5 years or roughly until we see a character again. Because was it in 2021? In WandaVision when we last saw her, because we've seen Wanda since then in Multiverse of Madness, in obviously that film. But yeah, we keep like waiting 3, 4, 5 years to see these characters again because there's so much in development, I suppose. So anyway, been enjoying that. It's been kind of fun. You got one of the guys from Heartstopper in there as well, which is cool. It's interesting when because a fair majority of the MCU's films have kind of been similar, let's call them that, right? And you've got the odd project here and there which is sort of very still tied in but very kind of independent, separate feeling, like thematically or whatever. And then you get Agatha that comes along, which again feels different, and you've got things like Shang-Chi that have felt different, and definitely Eternals as well. And you get these people kind of always saying like, oh, all of the MCU feels like the same thing over and over. And then we get something like this. Yeah. And then like, oh no, it's too weird. It's too different. It's like, okay, you don't actually know what you sort of want, which is interesting. But I know I've been very much enjoying that. So it's been just been a bit different and a bit fun.
I've been enjoying that too. The other thing I watched this week actually was Deadpool and Wolverine, finally, because it is out on home release. Cool. So I finally got around to seeing that. Absolutely loved it. It just wonderful fun. The stuff to camera, the inside jokes, just
all the quips.
Great. I'm slightly confused as to exactly what universe they were sort of ended up in. I mean, it was a death of all the sort of Fox stuff. But yeah, I'm still not entirely clear whether Deadpool's in his sort of own separate universe or whether he's, I don't know. But anyway, I thought it was a great way of sort of sending off some of those Fox characters and bringing kind of close to that universe. Really enjoyable. We got to see some characters that haven't been on screen for a very, very long time. We got to see them come back. I love the little tag at the end as well, which, without spoiling anybody, I think for anybody that hasn't seen it.
Oh, yeah. I was just trying to remember what you were talking about, yeah.
The little tag at the end apparently contractually had to be there because the actor involved in that tag refused to take the role unless they left that in. So they sold the actor on the part based on him reading that particular part of the script. And he basically said, I'll do it but that has to stay in. And they couldn't find a way of making it work within the main bit of the show, which is how it ended up as this sort of joke tag at the end. And it was sort of written as a joke thing. And he said, the only way I'm doing the role is if that stays in. So quite funny, but it's great. I mean, I hope we see more Deadpool in the future. I would like to see that character back.
He's the one sort of character in the MCU, apart from obviously Doctor Strange, who can jump through portals because he can make them, is the one kind of in-between character that you can sort of have, and the one that kind of, okay, not only will he do that, but he'll reference it while he's doing it.
Yeah.
It just depends on, because you've just gotten away with making an MCU R-rated film, which I think is the first of those, how exactly you put him in, because I'd love to see him with the other characters. And as I said many times before, there's a lot of characters in the MCU, and having them interact with each other, not just like, a point and sort of, oh my God, that person showed up, but actual, like, you know, like how Spider-Man did it, where they didn't just show up for a bit and then leave. They actually had conversations and scenes and stories. Because there's things like you could have Deadpool and Spider-Man and Deadpool and Daredevil, or, you know, all these, there's lots of different combinations. But how would you put him in like an Avengers film, for example?
I mean, it would be interesting to do something like that. And maybe if you've got Doctor Strange in there, I could envisage a situation where maybe you've got a film which has got, say, Doctor Strange, Spider-Man, and Deadpool in it.
That sounds
and maybe
cool.
Deadpool swears in front of Spider-Man, and Doctor Strange casts a sort of a censorship spell on him. So you can get like one minor swear word in there, and then every time he swears after that, it gets beeped.
Yeah,
you could do something like
it.
You could have it do something like that. There are fun and funny ways around doing something like that.
As long as it feels like fun and not restrictive, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, you would have to find a way of toning down his language or the stuff that he sort of says in certain films, I think. I mean, there is also the fact that he is aware that he is in a movie universe. So he could also be aware that if he is in a sort of PG-13 film, he can reference the fact that he knows he's in a PG-13 film and he's got to keep the language under control. I mean, there are ways of doing it. So
yeah, a lot of fun potential there. Because I would be, if he, like, what's the next, like, is it Secret Wars, the next sort of big
yes, I think so.
So I keep hearing about sort of, okay, comic book wise, how that's supposed to be the next one that like everybody's in. It depends if they've had to change things because of Kang or I don't know. So we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, I really, really enjoyed that film though, and I'm very interested to see, you know.
Yeah. And we finally got Hugh Jackman and Ryan Reynolds on screen together properly.
Yes. Yeah. That was very, very enjoyable. And I mean, I don't think we'll see Hugh anymore. I suspect that was his swan song, but at least it does give that as a possibility. So, you know.
Although he has to do it till he's 90. So
yeah, that's true. So that is all the stuff we've been doing this week. Let's move on to some TV and film news. So we kick off the TV and film news with the renewals, cancellations and pickups. First cancellation we have this week is, of course, a cancelled by Netflix. That 90s show has been cancelled. I mean, I can't say I'm overly shocked. Not that it was a particularly bad show, but I know the ratings were not great for it. I mean, it like the first half of the second season, I think, broke the top 10 in its opening week and then dropped out. And I don't think the second half, when they dropped the second half of the second season, broke the Netflix top 10 at all. So its numbers clearly weren't particularly high. I mean, it's a shame. I found it perfectly enjoyable. I don't think it's as good as that 70s show necessarily, but I think it was perfectly enjoyable and perfectly watchable. It's quite difficult to get those standard sitcoms to work, particularly on a streaming service. But, you know, as a 90s child, I like some of the references in there, or as somebody that sort of remembers that era with great fondness. So there was a couple of other things in here which aren't technically cancellations. They're sort of stopped before they even started. There was a sequel in the works on Freevee for Who's the Boss, which is an American sitcom starred Alyssa Milano and Tony Danza. And it was around in the 80s, I think. And they were doing a sequel series. You know, it was one of those revival things. Mm-hmm. They're now decided that's not moving forward. So they're not doing that anymore.
That's one of the women from Charmed, isn't it?
Yes. Melissa Milano, that was what she was known for prior to being Charmed, right. Was Who's the Boss. She played the child in that. That was sort of her as a child star in that. Yeah, I mean, the show was around from mid-80s to early 90s, basically. I think it was Tony Danza as a live-in housekeeper, sort of male nanny kind of thing,
right? Yeah.
To a posh household, and Alyssa Milano was the child in the house. But they were going to do a sort of follow-up to that, apparently, but they've decided against it. The other show which they're not moving forward with over at Amazon was the J. Edgar spin-off from Bosch. They've decided they're not moving forward with that. There was a couple of spin-offs they were looking at, and out of the two of them, they've moved forward with one and not with this one. So the J. Edgar one isn't happening. J. Edgar was Bosch's partner in the original series. I think the other one is still alive at the moment, but the J. Edgar one is not moving forward. So if you're looking forward to that, that won't be happening. Bosch seems to be the franchise that never dies. They just sort of reinvent it.
That's what I keep hearing, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it ran for 7 seasons. It's run for sort of 10 seasons overall. So they did 7 seasons of the original show. They then did Bosch Legacy, which ran for 3 seasons. So that's 10 seasons for the original character. And then they're looking at spin-off following Renee Ballard, which stars Maggie Q. And then there was also the J. Edgar series, but they've decided they're not moving forward with that one as well. So the Ballard spin-off is definitely moving. I think he's definitely moving forward. But yeah, we'll see. At least, I mean, the franchise is still kicking around by the looks of things. In terms of the renewals, Michael McIntyre's Big Show renewed for an 8th season on BBC One, so that will be back. Pop Master TV has been renewed for 2 more seasons, so I think that will take it up to season 4, plus some Christmas specials that's on more for. Hulu and Disney Plus have ordered 20 more episodes of The Secret Lives of Mormon Wives. I mean, yeah, fine. Batwheels has been renewed for a 3rd season at Cartoon Network. I think that's on net.
I forgot that existed. I remember a season 1 trailer coming out and I was like, oh, so it's another, I guess, Batman spin-off. And then I just completely forgot about it until you brought it up here. So
yeah, Batwheels is on Netflix in the UK if you want to go and check that out. Although you can, I think, go and buy them on Amazon as well, but it's on for free on Netflix, so you can go and check it out there. 2 of the bigger renewals, though. Colin Farrell's Sugar has been renewed for a 2nd season on Apple. I loved the 1st season of this, and it has got one of the biggest twists in TV history in it. It's a fantastic, fantastic series. Did you watch any of that?
No, that one must have passed me by. I haven't paid as much attention to Apple for some reason. I need to sort of have a look back on it, but no, I didn't check that one out.
Go and watch Sugar. You really, really need to watch it. It's fantastic. Right. It has a huge twist in it and becomes something very different from what you think it is when you're first watching it. I mean, it's a great private detective story to start off with, but it goes in a wildly different direction. It's really, really good. So yeah, that's coming back for a 2nd season, which is great. And Billy the Kid has been renewed for a 3rd and final season. This is the show which is from the guy that did Vikings and follows the history of the outlaw Billy the Kid. I mean, I've seen a few people complaining about it coming to an end, but at the end of the day, Billy the Kid only lived until he was in his early 20s. So there's really not that much story to tell. Whilst he's kind of this big monolithic outlaw figure, he wasn't that old. And there really isn't that much in terms of story to tell, and they've done some of the major plot points already. So 3 seasons seems like a perfectly reasonable way of rounding that off. I don't think it's because they've run out of money or anything. I think they've literally just not got any more story to tell. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. I've watched the first couple of seasons of that. It's been really, really good. Great show. So it's on, or it was on Prime Video in the UK. It's got removed now. I suspect it'll probably end up back on MGM Plus since it is their show. But at the moment, it's nowhere to be found on streaming in the UK, annoyingly. But when it pops back again, it is worth going to check out. That definitely. In terms of pickups and other news, there was a little bit of information about Sherlock. Not a lot, but a glimmer of hope, potentially. There was an event where Sue Virtue, who's the producer of the show, has been saying that the show has a future, possibly as a film, which is sort of echoing comments that Mark Gatiss made earlier this year. Both of them just saying the main problem is there is a will to do it, and they would like to make more Sherlock, but it's just proving practically impossible to get everybody's diaries to align, because you've got to get like Moffat, Gatiss, Martin Freeman, and Benedict Cumberbatch all working around the same time, and they're so busy trying to get them all on the same schedule has been a real problem. So there is apparently a will to do it, and they would like to do more of it, but it's just they can't align everybody at the moment. So I mean, I'd like to see a bit more Sherlock. I think it was a good TV show.
Yeah, so that was the other bit, because there's obviously a bunch of different versions of Sherlock, isn't there?
Yes, the two that were around at the same time was Elementary, which was the Johnny Lee Miller one, and then this one, which was the UK BBC one.
Yeah, wasn't there? There's also, and that's a bit different. There was the Enola Holmes and the Sherlock Holmes thing. And then there was it the Robert Downey Jr. thing?
Yeah, then Robert Downey Jr. had a film version as well.
Yeah, did two of them. So yeah, been a few different ones.
Yeah, I mean, I would quite happily see them come back to do either a film using those characters, or a made-for-TV film, ideally, or something else like a short run of 3 episodes or something like that. I'd be quite happy if they did like a little thing like that and just came back to it, because it's one of those, they're those sort of characters that you can drop in and out of without any problem at all. So I would like to see that now they've had a bit of time away from it, because it went off the rails a little bit at one point, and I think, given a bit of space from it, I think it would be interesting to see them come back again. Speaking of bringing things back, though, there is ITV are looking to revive a classic game show, only for a one-off Christmas special, but Bullseye, the darts competition show, they're looking to bring back with Freddie Flintoff as the host, and they're bringing it back this Christmas for a Christmas special. There's been a lot of interest in this, and it seems like one of those things that could lead to them bringing it back for a regular run, potentially, if this goes down well enough. But yeah, they're doing Bullseye for a Christmas special. Were you even alive when Bullseye was originally on TV?
Well, I saw the story that you posted for this or whatever, and I just assumed, it's just another, because they've got like dozens of game shows. They just sort of rotate them and throw them at the wall and see what sticks. And things just come and go all the time. But no, it's not one I was like specifically familiar with, no.
Which makes sense, because I mean, I remember Bullseye from my childhood, and you're a lot younger than I am, but it ran for 14 years. It was revived in 2006 with Dave Spikey as the host by Challenge TV, which ran for a season, I think. But essentially, it is a darts competition, and you have one person that answers sort of trivia questions. You have another person that throws darts at a board, and they have various different games, and they some of them, they've got to get a certain number on the dartboard to be able to win a particular prize or answer a particular question. It's sort of this combination of kind of knowledge and darts playing, but it was really, really beloved. It was hosted by Jim Bowen originally, and it's well known for the fact that one of the things that they used to do at the end of it is they used to go, look what you could have won, when the person lost, rather than because there was a mystery prize at the end. Oh. Now, rather than not knowing what the mystery prize was, they always ended it by going, oh, well, you've lost, but, you could have won this speedboat. It's like a really odd thing to do. And then they have a version of the theme tune that played in the minor key underneath it. So it's like a sad version of the theme tune when the person lost and didn't win the star prize. But yeah, it was an odd one, but there's a lot of kind of a nostalgic affection for it. So it'd be interesting to see. I think Freddie Flintoff is a really good person to be hosting a thing like that. Darts seems like very much his sort of thing, and I mean, I think he grew up on watching it as well, so that's quite a good replacement host. As I say, it's only coming back for one Christmas special at the moment so far, so we'll see whether they bring it back for more than that. Over on Prime Video, they've set a date for The World According to Caleb on tour, which is a recording of Caleb Cooper's theatre tour. Caleb is the farm manager sidekick to Jeremy Clarkson on Clarkson's Farm. And he has been doing this national tour, basically promoting sort of farming and his experiences, because, you know, he really, really loves farming, and he's just sort of talking about farming, obviously about working with Clarkson. He can be quite funny, sometimes unintentionally, but I think that could be quite fun. If you're a fan of Clarkson's Farm, The World According to Caleb on Tour is dropping on Prime Video on Friday, the 29th of November. So you'll be able to go and check that out there. And sticking with Prime Video, they've ordered the Reacher spin-off, which stars Maria Stein as Neely, who is the sort of sidekick private investigator to Reacher, the former member of his special investigators. So they've ordered one which will be following Neely as a private investigator in Chicago when she learns that a beloved friend from her past has been killed in a suspicious accident. She becomes hell-bent on justice, using everything she's learned from Jack Reacher and her time as a member of the 110 Special Investigators. Neely puts herself on a dangerous path to uncover a menacing evil. So I think that sounds like it could be quite good. Neely was always one of the sort of more interesting characters. Reacher's been a fantastic series as well. Did you catch any of that?
I never quite got around to watching it properly, but I know that I should give it a good try, which is one that I need to get to.
Yeah, it's another one that's definitely worth picking up. It's very, very well written, and Alan Richardson is enormous in it, but he's really, really good. Fills that Reacher role incredibly well. So yeah, I that's worth checking out. I think that's quite a good spin-off that they've picked up there. In terms of other revival things, though, this one is, I mean, I'm not entirely convinced by it, but it's from Big Talk Studios, and it's from Simon Nye, who has written a whole bunch of things, but Men Behaving Badly was one of his, and The Durrells was one of his. But it's to help develop a UK version of the iconic classic US sitcom Cheers. You're aware of Cheers, I'm assuming, even if you haven't seen episodes of it.
Yeah, I actually went and checked a little bit out of it on Paramount Plus. I just watched the first sort of 5 minutes or so because I wanted to see, because I heard Fraser was coming back, and I know that goes all the way back to Cheers, doesn't it? So
yes.
Yeah, that is on there. So
yes, yeah. I mean, and they ran it, I don't know whether they still do, but for years they ran it on Channel 4 early morning. Every morning.
I remember that, yeah.
So, you know, I mean, it's sort of ingrained in like a lot of people's sort of early morning routines. Cheers. So, I'm sure all of you know, Cheers, iconic sitcom, ran from the early 80s to the early 90s, set in a cozy Boston bar where everybody knows your name. And they're talking about trying to do a UK version of it. And the problem is, it's so set in its time. And as the guy that is sort of working on it has said from Big Talk Studios, the boss there, said the attitude in Cheers in the 80s are very different to the attitudes of today. So there's a massive amount of work to be done around taking inspiration from the original characters, but creating something fresh. So, I mean...
It kind of sounds like deliberately giving yourself a hard task.
Yeah, and I mean, he's right. You can't just take the original show and convert it to a British pub because attitudes are very different.
Yeah.
The basic elements I can sort of see working in that, you know, having a sports star open a bar and having a eclectic, weird group of regulars. I can sort of see that working, but equally, because it's set in a British pub and because times are different, it would have to be so different that I don't know why you would use the Cheers brand for it. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
It's, you know, because we've had sitcoms set in pubs before. I mean, there's been a couple. There was Time Gentlemen, Please, was it? It was the Al Murray one. And there's been a couple of others as well. And that sort of setup of a bunch of eccentric regulars in a pub with an over-the-top landlord, that sort of thing works perfectly well, but I don't know whether you need to attach it to Cheers particularly. And I do wonder whether that's going to do it more harm than just writing a brand new sitcom that happens to be set in a pub.
Yeah, I think if it ends up being too different, then just make it something different and new. And I hope this isn't kind of a case of like using the name a little bit, because we've seen examples of that before. I don't know, but yeah, it sounds like it's a very different approach than the original thing. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's very rare that you actually get UK versions of US shows. I mean, Who's the Boss that we mentioned earlier actually did have a UK version called The Upper Hand, which ran for a few seasons and was actually pretty reasonable. You get them going the other way a little bit more, like, you know, and they've had some huge successes with things like Ghosts and The Office, putting an American spin on it and making it work for that audience. I just feel that with this, it's less so much the fact that, I mean, there is the issue that it is such an iconic show, but it's also the fact that it's a very 80s show and the attitudes are quite different. And that detaches it even more from the original premise. So Simon Nye has got a quite difficult task. He did write Men Behaving Badly in the 90s. And, you know, that there is an element of potentially some of that coming in here. But I don't know. It seems like a really odd thing to pick up. So, yeah. But we'll see. I mean, it's not actually been ordered as yet. They are pitching it to people as a potential idea. So it may never come to fruition, but they have got the rights to do it, basically, is what they've said. So it's in development. Moving over onto Ghosts, which we actually mentioned just a moment ago, Lawrence Rickard and Ben Wilbond, who are two of the team behind the UK version of Ghosts, are apparently developing an animated series for Netflix, which is set in a British hospital. It's an adult animated series that says it takes inspiration from shows such as Family Guy. So it's that sort of humour. Would be set in a British hospital. It's from Big Talk Studios, who were the people that actually were doing the Cheers thing, but they've also did Outlaws and Ludwig, which I mentioned earlier as well, and a number of other stuff. They've teamed up with the BAFTA and Emmy-winning Blue Zoo Animation Studios, who did things like The Adventures of Paddington. I don't think they've done many adult animations before, but I mean, not to say that they can't, but they're won awards for the stuff that they have done. So yes, this will be an interesting departure for them as well, I think. But I'm all for anything written by the Ghosts crew, any of the Ghost crew. And I think there is certainly, I can see an animation working in a British hospital as an adult animation. I can sort of see that might work. Again, this is another one that is being pitched. It's not actually been picked up yet by Netflix, but they did approach them about doing it in the first place. So it does seem to be there is interest at Netflix. It's just whether they actually decide to pick it up or not. But officially, they haven't at the moment.
It could be an interesting combination of things. The animation, putting on Netflix and having a Family Guy style humor and then putting it in a hospital. It's an interesting combination of things. Curious to see, I guess, how that goes.
Yeah. I mean, Lawrence and Ben are really fun writers. They work together, obviously, on Ghosts and Horrible Histories and Yonderland as well, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And they've written, it's an interesting one with that Ghost team. It's a bit like the sort of Monty Python team in that they are a collective group, but some of them write individually, some of them write together. So they've been doing stuff together for years. And Lawrence and Ben tend to write quite a lot of their stuff together. So they're seasoned writers. They know what they're doing. I think that could be quite an interesting one. As I said, not officially being picked up yet, but we want to keep an eye on. And we don't have a name for it either. We just know that they are writing it at the moment, apparently. One of the news story popped up as well, which was for fans of Criminal Minds. Matthew Gray Gubler, who was in Criminal Minds, has landed the lead role in Einstein, which is a pilot for CBS from the team behind the TV show Monk, and it's based on an original German series. It's a dramedy that follows the brilliant but directionless great-grandson of Albert Einstein. He is smart, smooth-talking, comfortably tenured professor, but when he gets into trouble with the law, He's pressed by police to help a local detective solve the most puzzling cases. So Lou Einstein is a popular professor at Princeton. That is when he actually shows up for class. Irreverent and misguided, Lou's genius and famous name weighs on him heavily, but using his gift to help solve homicides may finally offer his life some direction and purpose. So it's interesting because Matthew previously played another science guy called Spencer Reid in Criminal Minds. He was actually the only full-time cast member to stay for the entirety of the 15 seasons of the original show. He then didn't actually, he was, I think, one of the only ones that didn't come back when they made Criminal Minds Evolution, which is this sort of spin-off continuation series, which you can get on Disney Plus in the UK. He didn't actually join that one. And I think he was one of the few that didn't, but then he did do 15 seasons of the original show. So he did pop up in Dollhouse, that sort of short-lived, I think it ran for 2 seasons, that on Hulu and Disney Plus. And he's apparently a children's book author and illustrator. He's been in a number of other things as well. So this Einstein show is based on a German series. It's from the people that created Monk, which I know is a very, very beloved TV show as well. So, yeah, I think the premise for this sounds interesting. I've never really watched Criminal Minds, so I don't really know the guy, but I kind of like the idea of this. I mean, it's interesting because you've got this and you've got sort of something like Ludwig, which is, you know, a puzzle setter sort of forced in police. And then you've got this, who is a sort of directionless, aimless genius forced into helping the police. I mean, there's been a few of these sort of things around, but I think having it as being the sort of directionless great grandson of Einstein is a kind of interesting twist. It's potentially got a sort of Sherlock-y vibe to it, maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds like a pretty decent kind of fun idea. It sounds like a few of the puzzle pieces here fit quite nicely together. So, yeah, sounds like a decent idea.
Yeah, I think it could be perfectly reasonable. I mean, it is only a pilot at the moment. It's for CBS. It actually can be a little tricky sometimes getting things onto CBS because their lineup is so strong. So it can be quite difficult. I mean, this is the problem that they had last year, was there was a number of shows that ended up getting canned on CBS, like So Help Me Todd, that would have survived on any other network because their lineup was so strong. So they have lost a few things this year. I mean, they got rid of SEAL Team, and their Blue Bloods is going as well, much to the annoyance of Tom Selleck, who is still ranting about that in the press and complaining about the fact that they canned it. But, you know, I mean, he ran for like 14 seasons or something. It's not like it had a bad run. But yes, so we'll see. They are piloting it for CBS. We'll see whether it goes anywhere. So that's all the news we've got for this week. Just some highlights for next week on TV next. So, highlights for next week. We have Grey's Anatomy back for the first half of season 21. That's on the 10th of October on Disney+. We have Sweet Pea, which is Ella Purnell, recently seen in, like you say, Yellowjackets and Fallout. She has a new show, and that is coming to Sky Atlantic on the 10th of October. That's called Sweet Pea. Looks like it's going to be quite an interesting one. There's been trailers around for that.
Yeah, that's very, very good.
Yeah, looks very interesting, that one. Tomb Raider, The Legend of Lara Croft, that lands as an animated series, landing on Netflix on the 10th of October. Citadel Diana, which is one of the numerous spin-offs from the Citadel universe on Prime Video. That's coming to Prime Video on the 10th of October as well. Outer Banks returns for part 1 of season 4. That is coming the 10th of October, which I love that show. It's such fun. And I'm really looking forward to the season 4 because it's sort of a start of a new chapter for the Pogues. So we'll see where they go with that and whether it can continue in the same vein that it has been. But very, very enjoyable, that show. But season 4, 10th of October for that. Over on the streaming service they have got The Alienist landing. That's seasons 1 and 2 on the 10th of October as well. So that, if you didn't catch that when it was on Netflix, it's now going to be on the streaming service so you can go and catch it there. There is a new Apple show coming on the 11th of October called Disclaimer, which is from Alfonso Cuarón, based on the novel by Rini Knight. Looks kind of interesting It's about a woman that discovers she's been written about in a book, I think, is the sort of setup for that without her knowledge. But yeah, 11th of October for that one. That's called Disclaimer. Mr. Loverman, which stars Walking Dead and many other things, Lenny James and Save Me and Line of Duty and all that stuff.
Cool.
It's Lenny James's new show, BBC One, on the 14th of October at 9 p.m. It's called Mr. Loverman. It's an adaptation of an acclaimed 2013 novel by the Booker Prize-winning author Bernardine Evaristo. Yeah, if you like Lenny James, 14th
He's
of October.
been busy, isn't he?
Yeah, well, yes, very busy. He's got all sorts of things going on. So 14th of October on BBC One for Mr. Loverman at 9 p.m. American Horror Stories is back for its 4th season. That is on the 15th of October. That's the sort of episodic anthology rather than series anthology version of the American Horror things. So each episode is different. 15th of October on Disney Plus for that. Another one popping up on you, which you might not have caught somewhere else, Animal Kingdom, which is dropping all 6 seasons on the 15th of October onto streaming service U. That will be landing there if you want to catch that. And The Last King of the Cross, 2nd season of that lands on Sky Max on the 15th of October at 9 p.m. You can catch that there, which is that Australian drama back for a 2nd season. So check that out. A few interesting things popping up there.
Yeah, it's that time of the year, isn't it?
Yeah, Outer Banks, definitely watching that. Might check out Sweet Pea, might check out Mr. Loverman as well. Not sure. Disclaimer sort of seems interesting. So, yes, some good stuff.
Yeah, I'm probably going to check out Sweet Pea and maybe Tomb Raider. I don't know, Tomb Raider has just been kind of thrown around a lot recently.
Yes.
So, yeah, because there is also another series in development. It's the live action Amazon one. The one that it won't star Phoebe Waller-Bridge, but she's like producing it or whatever.
Yes.
I think this is the Hayley Atwell voiced animated Netflix one. Yeah. Plus there's also new trilogy in development, and so there's a lot of Tomb Raider stuff. So
yeah, there is a lot of this stuff kicking around. So yes, but this one's voiced by Hayley Atwell. You're right. A lot of stuff worth checking out. It's getting into that busy period, like you say. If people want to find more of you, where can they find you?
You can head over to entertainmenttalk.org or the same name podcast platforms. I've got TV, games, films, main night podcasts. I had some very interesting things on Gaming Talk recently, like all the Assassin's Creed debacle. We're trying not to continue talking about Concord, but things keep coming up for the game. So there's that. Obviously, there's the United cast, which has been interesting to say the least recently. A few film reviews, TV stuff, more some other podcasts we did. Got the Walking Dead stuff we've done. A game review, Astrobot, if you like nice things that make you smile, Astrobot's the place to look for that. So I reviewed that game as well, which was nice. So yeah, you can also find me. I've been a little bit more regular on YouTube, which is called Entertainment Talk Plays. And if you want to find me on social media, it's either eTalk UK or Entertainment Talk. So take your pick of platform from there.
Cool. If you want to go and find Matt, you can find him at entertainmenttalk.org. If you want to check out Daryl for lots and lots of shows which are filmed up in Canada, you can go to hollywoodnorthnews.net. For us, you can visit the website at geektown.co.uk throughout the week and see all the latest air date information. If you want to get in touch with your questions or comments, email us on podcast@geektown.co.uk. Leave a message on the website post. Find us at Geektown on Twitter, on Facebook at facebook.com/Geektown, on YouTube at youtube.com/Geektown, on Blue Sky at Geektown, on Instagram at Geektown UK, TikTok at Geektown UK, and Threads at Geektown UK. That is everything. We shall see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.